Okay, I can give a little demo of what I've been working on. I have been, every time I work a little bit, like in the evenings, I'll do like, I don't know, 40 minutes. I create another uh, minor version in the date that I worked on something. So since we spoke, we created spaces and entities. I can have a list of entities that can be added to a space. So a space can have many entities. We created the box, sphere, and cone that you can add to a space. And the entity can be deleted from a space, and then you can also parent and unparent an entity to each other. So there's a certain hierarchy. I wrote some tests, and when you parent the entity, you can also see the number of children on the parent, and this allows a hint for the UI to know whether to expand a branch or not. So I also added a has many directive on the entity, has many children, that will allow you to query or preload the children of an entity. And then I fixed the failing test, and then in the UI I show only the root level. So I query the root level only, and then I added some UI to allow parenting. And then at the end of October, I added some ability to expand nodes. So if you click on a plus button, it queries the children underneath that node, and wrote some utility functions in order to recursively create this data structure for the front end. Also wrote some content tag, which is the function that's able to render the ULI elements in a recursive manner. And yesterday I added the ability to parent and unparent an entity in the UI. So this was version 006. And I write an X for the things I've accomplished. So today we can work on 007. Today will be the 4th. And things to work on are prevent circular references in parenting, ability to add components. Maybe we'll work on this because this I think requires, maybe I have a different data structure in mind. But right now I'm trying to solve a thing where I pushed up 006, or at least I should have. So I'm on branch. Okay, so I have branch, get branch, v006, and I push this up to GitHub, git push origin v006, and I'm looking in GitHub. Where's GitHub? In GitHub, I don't see 006. Where is it?
That's not a pull request. Right?
Oh, duh. Thanks. Branches. Here we go. New pull request. The power of peer coding. Okay, so now I'm going to merge this. And I can check out master. So git check out main. Git component line. What's this? That should have been checked in. There's a problem with using like the containers. Sometimes this kind of thing gets kind of wonky. Let me see if I have live component live component live under the other branch. I'm pretty sure I do. Let me check on GitHub. So in version 006, I created a migration for this thing called components. Yeah, there's the component. The migration will be in here, create component. So component belongs to an entity, and I think it'll just have a type and some kind of map of data. Back to here. I don't know what's going on with this thing. Let me just git stash it, I guess. Oh, it's not checked in, which is weird. Let me do git pull. Please remove the, all right, git stash or git remove.
That's an entire directory.
Yeah, remove. Component live, yeah. Okay, some weirdness, yeah. So I'm using the Windows subsystem for Linux, except when I make changes in VS Code, this is in another container that's actually, so it's weird the way they do the volume mounting. So anyway, so we want to work on version 007 now. So I'll make a branch, git checkout branch version 007. So let me fire, I'm going to restart my server here. So ix-x mix phoenix server. Launching this, let me open up a web browser and point it at spaces, which you've seen before. So here we've got a new space. I'm going to, I'll just delete this, create a new space, 1, 2, 3. And if I go into the show, it kind of looks kind of messy, but here's a drop-down box. So right now we just have a space, no entities. So let's say I want to add some geometry. So we can say, hey, look at this. Uh-oh. Oh, okay. It happened so fast I didn't see anything that changed. I added a box. Here's my box. Okay. I'm going to add another box. Now I have 2 boxes. I'm going to add a cone. I've got a cone. I'm going to add a sphere. I've got a sphere. Now if I want to delete one of them, I don't want one of these boxes, I can click on this, which selects it, and then this delete button appears, so I can delete box Z, ZJ1. So if I delete that, box ZJ1 is gone. And now I want to say that this sphere is like the sun, and I want to create another sphere which is like a moon. So I want some parent-child relationship. So I want to say that this one should be parented to this one. So you can actually select 2 things. The second one that is selected will be the parent, I believe. So the Z should go into the Y. So then this parent button comes out. So now we have this plus button. You can expand that. So the Z is inside the Y. So it's parented. Now I want to put the cone inside this sphere as a child. So I select this one, then I select this one, and I'm saying I want the cone to go inside the sphere. I say parent. So if I expand this, the cone is inside this sphere. And then I change my mind, I want to unparent it. So I click on this, and because it has a parent, I can unparent that. That returns to the top level. But if I click on box, I can only parent it, but there's no unparent button here. So that's kind of what I worked on. And now what I wanted to work on is, so this kind of emulates a little bit of what you would see in an application like Blender. So Blender is a 3D graphics engine. It's not web-based, but here you have this outliner, and it says I have a camera, I have a cube, I have a light, and here's my cube. And so when you select it, you have this properties inspector underneath here. And each one of these we can, I guess, consider components. It's just pieces of data that are related to it, right? So it has the rotation, it has the scale, and you can change them right here. So if I could put 5 here, it actually changes the scale here. I can change the rotation here. It'll change this kind of thing. You can also reach in there, of course, graphically, and you can change these things, and these things are moving. So I think in a web UI, if we're using Phoenix channels and it's broadcasting these messages, you can create like collaborative editing where people are editing this together. Plus, you can always have people in there in VR and watching things move around you, which I think will be pretty cool. So if I want to add a new thing, you can come to this add new mesh, which can be another cube, let's say. And if I want to make this a parent of this thing, I think I select this one and I select this one. It has this multicolored thing, and I think it's where'd it go? Parent object. So now you can open this triangle, and you see that the one of the cubes is inside the other cube. So if we just, I don't know which one is which. Yeah, if we grab this one, and you see this little dotted line here. So one of the things is if you want to rotate this, so yeah, if I just hold this down, I think. No, but anyway, yeah, if you rotate this, this is going to rotate around it like a planet. So I'm kind of borrowing this hierarchical editing similar to Blender. We also see that in BabylonJS. So if you go to the playground in BabylonJS, they have this code editor, but they also have this kind of inspector, and you see these node hierarchies here. Now you can't parent and unparent with this inspector. Here's the sphere. So you have the sphere, you can move this around, but you can't parent, unparent. You'd have to parent it and unparent it in the code. So if you wanted to, so that's something that we can improve upon. But it's a similar kind of notion that you would have this kind of hierarchy, and it would go in. And when you select one of these things, you have this inspector down here. Again, you can modify some of these things, but these things are kind of fixed. So every time you have a cube, there's always position, rotation, and scaling, which may be a good idea, but this doesn't apply to everything. So if you look at the light, you don't really get position and scaling. I think what you get is intensity. So that's a thing that's specific to a light. So these components, they really depend on the type of object that you're talking about. They don't apply ubiquitously to all entities. So if I change the intensity, now it's a 1 versus going down to like a 0.1. So that's kind of what I want to create in this area. So right now I've, for whichever one entity I selected, I wanted to show some properties underneath here. So that's kind of where I am. Where I could use some help with is some of the styling here. If we can like move this to the right and make another like inspector down here, we can kind of begin to shape this the way some of these editors are. Any questions, comments up to this point? I take that as a no.
No, but I see what you mean. Like why you would want to style it better to make it look like more like an editor versus like a web form or something. But yeah.
Yeah. So we can take a look at some code. So all I did was run the generator to create a table. So we have a table. It's called components. It has many entities. And so this data map, I would like to have some kind of schema around the different types. And I was looking at this library here, which is called Polymorphic Embed. So what this claims to do is it brings support for different schemas that can be embedded in that map. So right now, all this has is an ID. It's who it belongs to, and all the data is in this generic map, but we don't really have strong validation around this. And I'm hoping we can use this type, but the way polymorphic it embeds, I think this type might actually be a key inside here. So we'll see. Maybe we won't be able to use this type out here. So I thought we could spend this time to try to figure out how to use this thing. So what this says is, let's say you have a reminder schema, which is like a regular table, and it contains a channel field that can hold either an email or an SMS struct by setting its type to the custom type polymorphic embed. So here we're defining a schema, and the schema, this is generic for everybody, will have a date and text. And then you say additionally, it has a field called channel, which you say is polymorphic embed, which is what this library adds. And then the channel can be one of these. So it can either be an SMS type or it can be an email type. And both of these are defined by their own modules. And then when you validate this whole chain set, you're going to say, okay, date and text, let's cast that. But the polymorphic embed, let's say that it's required and cast the polymorphic embed. And here are the individual schemas for the different types. So we could have either email or SMS, right? So here's the email. So the email is further defined by a schema of address, which is a string, confirmed, which is a Boolean. And this is good because it will get some validation, right? So if this is not a string, this change set will complain. If this is not a Boolean, it won't complain. And so this will be converted into a map that will live inside this channel. Whereas before, like if we try to do this directly, we can't lean on this kind of validation. So I like this idea. And then here's an SMS type. So let's try to bring in this library. And also it gives you ways to make forms out of these things, which that would be cool. So we could put, hey, I want to add a component which is throwable or has gravity or acts like a gun or whatever the data that we might need. We can choose from a list of components, and then when we first select an entity, and then there's a drop-down list of components that we can add or remove to an entity. We can also click into the component and modify things. So I think whenever we create a box, maybe we do create position, rotation, scale, or maybe we don't. Maybe it's just at the origin, and if they want to move it, then they add a component called position, and then they can move it over. So we can play with that idea first, which is to add a position, rotation, and scale component. Okay, so it looks like they installed this in their dependencies using this thing, Polymorphic Embed. So I'll copy this. Is that the latest version 172? 172. So we'll head over to our code base, and in our mix file, we'll add this. Oh, I just added it, Polymorphic Embed. There it is. And then, okay, we want to import this into our schema. So we'll grab this, and our schema is at component here. So we have data, which is a map currently. And how do they have it? They have field data, it's a map. So here they have field channel, and here they have polymorphic embed. So let's paste this in. And so we want to change this guy here. So I'm just going to copy what they have here and modify it.
What is that number 3? Cast polymorphic embed 3. What is that?
So this means I want to import from this module this function with this arity, meaning that you might have multiple cast polymorphic embed, but this one takes 3 arguments. but you might have another version that takes 2 arguments or 1 argument. So we're going to want data, polymorphic embed, and the types are, let's start with one type. On not found, raise, on replace, update. I think that's fine. The type will be position, and we'll define, let's say, the XR, let's call them components, I guess. Components, position. So we'll go and define this module. Is there anything else that we needed to add here? Okay, cast. So we'll say that this is required. So we have cast down here. And we'll say the type and data. So this is data, right? So I don't know if type will be required yet. So it could be that's all we need. We have to cast, polymorphic embed, data, and it's required. Component attributes is unused. Okay, we might need this one. Cast adders for it's interesting. Cast type entity ID. I don't think data can be in here. Maybe we just do that. Okay, we'll see. Now I think we need to go define this thing. So let's create a folder for components. And let's call this one position. So we'll create a module, the XR components position. And how did they do this? So they had some of this. Active schema, active changeset, primary false, embedded schema. So I think it should have an X, which is a float, a Y, Z. So your position is made of X, Y, Z. I think even this can be put into a commonly used thing called a vector 3. But let's start with this, and we can refactor later. So we say position has a schema, and they're going to give us the thing that is us, position, and params, position, and I cast, and I want X, Y, and Z. This is the same thing as sending in the symbols, I think. Let's try. What is tilde W? X, Y, Z. Yeah, it stringifies them, and then A, I think, atomizes them. Yeah, okay. Validate required. Yeah, you're going to want all of them required. Well, let's start simple. So if we recompile here, if we do alias the XR components position, we can say position change set. If you're given a position and adders, what do you give back? You've got, I think, X 5.3, Y, whatever, Z. So it's valid, it's got this data. But what if the last one was, okay, so we don't have any validation on it, but, oh, the cast might complain. So if I give a string here, oh, it actually cast it. So it made it, okay, but if I give it like text, okay, so now it's invalid. So we get some validation for free based on this. So it's not valid. So we have this thing, it has a change set, which is casting some things, minimal validation. We can come back to the component. So how does the change set work at this level? So let's alias this thing. So alias the XR spaces component. So component, oh, I just realized that I alias this twice, right? Because we have, no, the other one is called position. Component change set. Okay, so if you give it a thing of this component and adders, okay, so it says the data can't be blank. You have to give it data. And so here's, I'm not sure what this needs to look like. So data can be what, position? Whoa. Protocol enumerable not implemented for the XR components position XYZ of type position. This protocol is implemented for the following types. Polymorphic embed convert map keys to string. To get polymorphic module cast polymorphic embeds one. Enum reduce. Okay. I also don't know how mature this library is, so it could have an issue here. So what was I supposed to give here? Maybe it's this? So that's okay. Can you do X? Could not infer a polymorphic embed. Y, Z. So does it need a type?
So there's something in the doc that says with. It seems like something special in your change set, I think. Yeah. I don't know if it's relevant.
If?
Yeah, there's a key. It doesn't look like a keyword, but it's different. Let me paste this here. Like this guy's change set with email and SMS.
Oh.
Right, like you see this? Like
Yeah. But this one doesn't use it. I think
I think this is when you try to is it when you try to call it? I don't know what that is. Yeah.
Yeah, that's if you want to use a change set that's not.
Oh, okay, it's a
module.
custom change set. Okay.
So this one didn't use it, I think. Sorry, channel with, yeah, if you want to change that, but yeah, I'm a little stuck. I'm not sure. Let's see, where are we? Component. We're trying to use this position.
Go to, is there a position struct? I mean, yeah.
This one?
Okay.
So yeah, I defined this thing.
Okay.
And then over in here, I referenced it by its full path here. I said it's made up of this thing. If I recompile here. So I'm saying this thing.
Okay, so if you're saying like there's a field data, it seems like there should be a key that's called position or something, or no. Like data, either that or there's a type key or something. Because if you do it like this, you're simply saying data is a struct called position, or how is it gonna? I don't know.
Yeah, it's supposed to infer it from, I guess, this thing here. So it recognizes this as a struct, but it trips up on, okay, so cast polymorphic embeds one, do get polymorphic module from math, convert map keys to string, it's reducing. So something inside the library is choking up.
Well, so here, can you go to this link? The test file. In it, it's so this guy's polymorphic field is called channel, right? It's ours is called data, right?
Yeah.
So do you go to the test file? See, there's a test that describes how it uses it. So if it, yeah, just right around here, you see how channel, right? Channel is itself a map, right?
Mm-hmm.
In it has this my type field SM, but I don't, it maybe called something different, but it should look something like this, not just to your data type, I think. Yeah. I mean,
My type field, huh?
yeah, like what should that be for us? Like position?
Yes, I think so.
And the key my type field is weird, and then
Yeah, I read he's able to set that somewhere. Context type. My type field. Here, let's search my type field.
But regardless, this thing is not just any. It's not his data type. It's a map of some sort. It doesn't have a specific type to it, right? It doesn't say it's like, dot component dot something, application dot component dot position. It's a map, and the key, one of the keys is my type field. I don't know what that is.
In the README, he mentions something about, let's see, did we have anything here about it? Type, let's see. So this is about inputs, options, types, these. So we're saying this symbol maps to this module, and types discussed above. Type field, specify a custom type field, defaults to underscore type underscore underscore. So maybe on type not found, place. Here we specify how the type can be determined based on the presence of given fields. If the data contains address, a type parameter is no longer required. Note that you may still include a type parameter. Okay. So data. So does the type parameter go inside this thing though?
I think what data points to has to be a map, and in that map, one of the keys is like underscore underscore type or something. No, it can't. It can't be in your data type. That data type is. See,
So you think it should be out here?
no, I think what data points to, like data arrow, right? Like that should be a map. It should be percentage, open bracelet and close bracelet.
Oh, but it is a map. This is a map.
Oh, this is a map. This is already a map. Oh, then I have no idea. I'm clueless.
In fact, it is a map with. How do I display this?
Is this the same type as if you did percentage curly bracelet?
Elixir print map details.
Yeah.
Oh, it's the same thing? Okay.
How do you print map? So structs are maps underneath the hood with some special values. But how do you, is it IO puts, or how do you
IO spec.
No, but IO and spec just printed the same thing. There's a way to like see the actual like details, like the struct and map or something.
Wait, what? What do you need to do? Oh,
I want to see the underlying map structure.
Oh, I'm not sure.
Elixir C map type or something. Maps are go-to key value data structure. Delete equal from struct, commit to struct to a map. Map from struct. No, that didn't do anything.
That did something, right? Like it doesn't.
It just
no, it did the thing.
It peeled the type off of it. Yeah.
Isn't that what you wanted? No.
That shouldn't make this thing pass though. Yeah, C map. What is it called? You haven't come across this, Bobby?
You want to see what exactly? Cause you want to see what the name of the struct is?
I want to see, yeah, all the details of a map. There's like a way you can inspect a struct other than IO puts or IO inspect.
I mean, like, what other details are there to see here? For example.
For example, you can do this, right? There's a hidden thing on here that you don't see here. That's in the map.
Oh, like all the wait, what hidden thing?
There's properties under here. There's properties that we're not getting seen because the UI, this thing hides stuff, right?
Oh, if you want to see, like, I see.
What are elixir structs? Keyword list. Forgot what it was.
I didn't know that. I didn't really ever think about that because the struct. Yeah, I just thought it was just they're just plain old structs. It is what it is, kind of thing. Like they're named maps.
They are named maps, yeah.
Yeah,
So-
I mean,
so it-
yeah.
So from the doc, it did say it expects a type, right? Like you have to give it a type named, in this case, position. Somewhere in your map, there has to be like this underscore type underscore, and with the string position of some sort. I don't know.
Okay.
And yeah, if you just do this, what would be the error? Okay, so there you go.
So without the type, this doesn't work, right? So if some other thing, you cannot infer that, and then
if you don't pass it at all,
if you don't pass it at all,
well, now it's not even a map anymore. Okay, yeah, so you must have that type.
Okay.
It does say on type not found. Perhaps you can default that to some sort of behavior.
Okay.
Like if there's no type, you do something.
I guess that makes sense because when we receive things from the UI, we're not going to know what elixir type it is. We're only going to get strings.
Right. So you're only going to do, all you need to do is this. You'll get this from a form, and one of the fields is going to be underscore type, or you can name it something else. You can give it a different key name, I guess.
So I wonder how it's going to serialize this into the database. So if we do have type, so here's the change set. Whoops. Okay, so then we go repo dot.
Did you already run the migration?
Did I run the migration? I ran the migration, yeah.
Okay.
But let me check the. So it belongs to an entity. So I need to give it an entity or because this references. Actually, it will allow it to be nil right now. Okay, so I can just save this. So I can just say repo insert into component. Actually, just give it this change set.
Oh, cool.
So
what does that look? What does it look like?
Okay, insert into components data inserted at updated at with this. Oh, okay, so it did serialize it. It does put this.
It put that in it.
Yeah.
Okay, and then what else? What else does it have? Oh, yeah, it also has the.
So if I
the XYZ. Okay.
All component. this comes back. Oh, it translated it. So it gives you the type back. Oh, that's pretty cool. So it doesn't give you a map back, it gives you the type back.
Yeah, because it knows you had the underscore type, and then it does something to sort of figure out the type, the Elixir type. Okay.
That's cool. So if we wanted to see the components on an entity, so let's write some convenience function in our spaces context. So here's all our functions that are a little bit more high level. We'll add some here for components. So we've got some list components. These are just auto-generated by the generator, get component, blah, blah, blah. We can clean this up later, but we want to know specifically all the components for an entity. So I want to change this a little bit. So next to list components, let's do list components for entity. Give the entity ID, and then this query will be like from C in components where the C dot entity ID is equal to the entity ID you passed in. And let me alias what component is. Oh, looks like it's already aliased. Okay, so we got that query, and then we'll execute the query. So this entity from where from must be a compile type keyword list. What? Let's look at some other examples. Where else? From where colon. So this should give you all the components in a particular entity. It's not going to give us anything now because we got away with creating a component with no entity, which we shouldn't allow us to do that. So we could put a guard at the database level in our migration here that this has to be non-null. Let's see, did we do it for the other things? Entities, we said entities belong to space, and space is null false. Okay, we did do that. So components belong to an entity, no exceptions. So null is false. And we can just reset our database. So mix ecto reset, we'll recreate it from scratch. All right, so now we want to write a function to, let's go back to spaces. We want to maybe have a list of proper components that we have. I don't know what to call this. Let's say list component types. Remember, this is like channel and channel types, right, Jay?
I don't remember. What the hell? What's channel types?
Channel types are like eBay,
what's the
Amazon.
difference?
Channel types are eBay, Amazon. See what?
Okay.
Channels are a particular instance, like my Amazon account, your Amazon account.
Oh, interesting. Interesting.
So
bad name.
List component types are like position versus a particular component that belongs to an entity. So this is like for the drop down. I want to choose a channel type, which right now is just position. And
okay.
So now we want to create a component on an entity. So let's go to get component and create component. Okay, so we want to modify this. We want to create component for entity. So what do we need here? We need to pretty much we just need the attributes for, okay, so we need the entity ID and any attributes for that component. And as long as it has the type, we should be fine. Somebody drop off?
No, it says 10 minutes until free time is over. You have an additional H at the end of your function name.
Yeah, it's yours.
Like you said, it's create component for entity H.
Okay. Yeah. So okay, component. I mean, I guess this was fine. We can stick the entity ID into the attributes when you give it back. Component.
Do all components need a type? Maybe you can make that explicit.
Do all components need a type? Yeah.
You know that thing. So we could. I don't know how we do it, but
that's part of the library. Like it's failing on its own without that.
oh, okay.
So pass this component, and then component change set. I think this will work. So let's go ahead and create an entity in the UI, and then we'll try this in the console. So let's go to ix-mix Phoenix server. All right, let's come over here. There's no space here anymore since I reset the database. Whatever. We've got a space. Jump in there and create a box entity. And this box entity has an ID of this. Right. So over here, repo all entity. It was 5 blah 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 blah, right? Is that right? Yeah. Okay, so that's the entity ID. And so if we're using this function here, we'll do spaces, create component for entity, pop in the entity ID, and we could say that its type is position, and x is 1.0, y is 2.0, z is 3.0, and false. Data cannot be, but oh,
So yeah, okay.
Okay. I have to this whole thing is another map within a map, with this being data. Whoops. Over the end.
It worked.
It worked. And then if I want to list them for the entity, now I do spaces dot list. What was it called? List components for entity. List components for entity. Give it the entity ID. And there it is. So in our UI, probably running out of time.
So this component doesn't really have a type. The type is sort of embedded into the thing. It needs another type, right? A component itself needs to be a type. Like this type is a box or something, and then the data has its own type, which would be a position. Is that right? Like,
say again. Say again.
See, like, because like the second line from the bottom, it says type nil.
Yeah.
So the component itself should have a type, like a box, right? Like, is that it?
That's what I was
thinking,
but this library actually implicitly puts the type inside this data structure, and when it fetches it out, it like the Elixir struct has the type in it. We would be able to see it, but we wouldn't be able to query it unless we put I mean, we could put an index on JSON-B, but this is what I had envisioned, but the library is not actually using this one, right? It's over here.
So the library simply just put everything into a JSON field.
Yeah.
And then it does some magic too when serializing and deserializing. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes. How much time?
Interesting approach. We have about 3 minutes, or maybe five minutes.
Okay. So.
And how hard is it to change Elixir to work with a NoSQL database? I'm just curious.
I don't know. This is Ecto, which has wrappers for dealing with Postgres. Presumably, you just have to write wrappers to deal with like there's certain like 4 functions you have to implement, like load, basically serializing going in and serializing coming out, and then you can. But it has data mappers for SQL, so I don't know how well it does for NoSQL. But I mean, you can just, like you said, write your own NoSQL, right? You can drop down to the lower level if you want to.
Okay.
I want to see really quick if we could just export this out into the UI. So if we go into show, and if I get cut off, then I'll end it there. But okay, so we have the show HTML. Okay, so over here, this is where I'm displaying the little text area and selected entity. So if selected entity, show selected entity. And here I want to show, so here are the components, and this would be maybe selected entity components. So we should fill that with something. So when you select something, I think when you select an entity, which happens over here, select entity, maybe we could assign in here the selected entity components, variable components, and then this will be spaces get, or was it list components for entity given the entity ID. It probably won't know how to format this because it's coming back with a struct. So over here, we'll probably just need to pop this into an inspect. So we'll just do inspect what that is. So over here, if we select this one, hey, here are the components. We've got our component, which is the position. So we need to clean this up, throw a form around it so we can edit the 1, 2, and 3. So yeah, I'll stop sharing now. Stop presenting. So Bobby or Jay, do you think you can help out with some of the UI stuff and help with the styling, maybe draggable like divs around it or something? You can check out the code at GitHub VRMeet. You're both members. The XR, I think is the repo.
I wouldn't know how to style anything.
Yeah, I could take a look.
Yeah. So yeah, Facebook announced that. Oh man, we're probably gonna get cut off anyway. Wow. Yeah, all right.
2 more minutes. 2 more minutes.
Facebook announced that they're doing Meta, and on Clubhouse they're having a lot of discussions about Meta recently. But anyway, there's a lot of people coming up. So I think I count at least 3 or 4 HTML like web-based spaces like this. But you know, I think there's room for different spaces, and it'd be cool if you can jump into other people's spaces, right? So questions, comments? All right. If not,
Cool.
I'm gonna save this file and I'll push the version up to GitHub. All right. Good night.
Bye.
All right.